Here we are again, another lecture from the desk. I'm always either at my desk or standing in front of a screen or in my car or walking around. I guess it does make sense that I would name these things this way. I'm talking today, continually talking today about identity. I've done some mask series. There's a few masks that I have to put in, and this is lecture 13 of this series. For those of you who participated in the 35 Days of Unbound, those are still available for you. And then there's hundreds and hundreds of other teachings that are available at beyondunbound.com if you come into our community. And if you have questions there, please reach out. If you want help with this process, please reach out. And anything you need in regard to life and knowing who you are and living autonomously and in freedom, without anxiety, fear, worry, stress, etc., let us know. We're here to help you. So today I want to talk about the past. And it's a place where most of us say, oh, no, I don't dwell on the past. But yet every time we turn around, we're looking at the past because we're allowing the past to define us. So today is me discussing that sentence. And that sentence that almost everyone says without thinking it. It moves through this industry, if I can call this an industry. It moves through self-help books, through personal growth gurus, through therapy rooms, through conversations between people who are really just trying to understand themselves. And this sentence sounds like wisdom. It sounds like the hard-won fruit of what most people would think of as genuine self-examination. So I want to take time during this lecture making the case that it is one of the most quietly destructive sentences in the conversation about identity. And the sentence is this: the past made me who I am. I'm going to say that again. The past made me who I am. Let me be precise about why this sentence is dangerous. Okay, because when I say danger, hyperbolically, people, okay, we roll our eyes at it, but I'm not joking. I'm not being hyperbolic. This sentence is dangerous. I am my past, basically. This is what I'm talking about. Because it's not entirely false. So your past shaped you. It did. Your past experiences influenced you. They left marks on your nervous system, on your patterns, on the masks you built and the agreements that you made about what was safe and what was dangerous and what wasn't safe. And all of that is true. But your past did not make you. And the difference between shaped and made is not just a few letters. It is not a small difference. It is one of the most significant changes or misunderstandings in this space that I see. It's the entire difference between a person who understands their history and a person who is governed by it. So when you say your past made you who you are, you're assigning authorship of your identity to a set of events and conditions or people or experiences that no longer exist, that are literally over. And because they're over, they are unchangeable. The experiences of your past cannot be changed. They cannot be reformed into a better experience. And because of that, they belong to a version of you that no longer exists in the same form. And see, you are locating the source of your identity in something external to be the present self. An identity that is sourced in the past is one that is permanently constrained by the past, permanently chained or bound by the past, because the past does not change. If the past made you and the past is unchangeable or fixed, then you are unchangeable and fixed. You are not growing or evolving or free. You're fixed to the thing that happened in the form the happening produced. I have sat with a lot of people, with many people who have worked hard on their past, trauma, shadow, whatever it may be, childhood. They've examined it, and they've examined it thoroughly. They've understood it with real clarity. They've processed the significant events and developed a real and genuine compassion for the younger version of themselves. that version, that person, that true person at the moment who lived through these things. And some of these people who are still, despite all of that excellent work, living from the past as the primary author of their present self. And it's not because the processing was insufficient or done in error. It's because the fundamental relationship between past and identity was never questioned. See, the past was examined, but the premise that the past is what you are was not. Let me talk about how this fusion happens. I mean, I described this briefly in an earlier lecture, but I want to go deeper here because this is one of the most important mechanisms in the entire series. The fusion between what happened to you and who you are is not accidental. It's the natural result of how human beings process experience, particularly overwhelming experiences. And it has a specific structure that is worth understanding and from in my point of view, having extreme clarity on. Okay, so something happens. It could be just a single thing, an event, or of significant impact, or it could be a pattern, a consistent quality of environment that accumulated over years into something that had the same structural effect as a single event. The experience is real. The pain or confusion or fear or shame it produced is real. And in the heat of that experience, in the moment when the nervous system is responding to something it did not know how to fully process, meaning gets made. Okay? The meaning is almost always a statement about identity, not a statement about an event, right? The statement about the person to whom the event happened. And it's something like this. This happened to me because of something about me, right? Or because this happened, I'm the kind of person who this happens to. Or because I did not stop or prevent this from happening, I'm the kind of person who can't protect themselves. Or because this is what I came from, this is what I'm made of. The event and the identity fuse in the meaning-making moment. Okay? And the fusion, once established, has an extraordinarily durable shell. and tie. The fusion is durable for several reasons. First, it feels like understanding. And a person who has made meaning of their experience feels in some important sense less at the mercy of it. Okay? Because the meaning provides a narrative, and a narrative provides a kind of control. Even a painful narrative is preferable for many people to the chaos of an experience that has no meaning. So the fusion is maintained in part because it provides the psychological stability of a story about what happened and why. Okay. Second, the fusion is reinforced by the masks that were built in response to it. The mask, as we have examined across the last several lectures, are adaptive responses to the conditions the experience produced. And the masks operating as identity continuously act from the premise that the fusion is accurate and true. So the resume mask behaves as if worth is conditional because the past experience established that premise. Okay. The relationships mask, it manages everyone's emotions because the past experience established that emotional chaos is dangerous. The masks are the past's operating system running in the present time, confirming with every activation that the past version of the person is the current self. Third, the fusion is confirmed by the communities and the relationships that know the person through the lens of the past. The family system that knew you in the context of the original experience, the long-term relationships that have been built around the version of you that the past produced, the communities whose understanding of you is organized around your history. These relationships are not intentionally keeping you in the past, but their understanding of you is anchored there. And a person whose primary relationships reflect back the past self has a harder time accessing the present self than a person whose relationships are engaging with who they are now. I want to offer then a different relationship to the past than the one most people are carrying. Not a dismissal. This is something that I get into a lot of times with clients, they'll say, well, don't take this away from me. Don't take this pain away. Don't take this experience. This is me. It helped shape me. We're not going to take that away. We're not dismissing what happened. Not the toxic positivity move of insisting that the past doesn't matter. That's what I'm trying to get to. And that it should be released and forgotten. That's not good counsel. So if you say, "I'll just forget about it," you got to move on. That's not good. That's not the proper way to say that to someone, because the past matters, okay? What happened to you was real, and the effects were real, and honoring that reality is part of any genuine engagement in truth with it or anything. But honoring the reality of what happened is different from assigning it authorship over who you are. The past is information. It's a set of events and conditions and experiences that shaped the masks that you built, the patterns you developed, and the agreements you made about what was safe. It is enormously useful information for understanding why you currently operate the way you do. It is the explanation for many things that would otherwise be confusing about your present experience. So understanding it gives you a map, sort of the territory. And the map of the territory is very valuable. But the map is not the territory. The past explains the masks. It does not constitute the identity underneath them. And the identity underneath them, the actual self that was present before the masks were built and that has been present throughout, is not a product of the past. It is something prior to the past, something that the past encountered and responded to and shaped the surface of, but it did not originate. The self that the masks have been covering is not something the past made. It is something the past obscured. This distinction is vital. And this is the distinction that changes everything. If the past made you, then understanding the past is the primary work of becoming free. You trace the wounds, you understand the origins, you process the experiences, and the understanding produces the liberation. But if the past obscured you, then understanding the past is only part of the work. The understanding clears some of the obscurity, but what is being revealed through the clearing is not something the past produced or had anything to do with. It is something the past covered up and now is being seen. And seeing it requires not just looking back at what happened, but looking inward at what was there before and what has been there throughout. The movement away from past as identity then is not the denial of the past. It is the relocation of authorship. The past is a chapter, not the author of what happened. And what happened to you is part of your story. It is not the story's source. The source is the self that was present before the story began and that has been present through every single chapter since. And that self, not the events that shaped its mask, is the author of the present. Practically, this relocation of authorship begins with a specific and deliberate question. When you notice yourself operating from a pattern that you can trace to a past experience, the question to ask is only, where did this come from? Is not only, where did this come from? We're not just sitting here looking to try to figure out the origin. It's a useful question, but it keeps the focus and the attention on the event and on the past. The better question to add, notice I said add, you don't eliminate the question I just said. Is this pattern an expression of who I am, or is it an expression of what I learned to do in response to conditions that no longer exist? That second question begins to introduce a distinction the fusion had been preventing. The pattern is not you. The pattern is something you learned and developed. And something you developed, no matter how long ago or however thoroughly it has become automatic, is not the same as something you are. It is something you do. And something you do can be examined and can be understood. And over time, as the identity underneath it becomes clearer, it can begin to be replaced by something that is more genuine, a true expression of who you actually are. Friends, this is not a quick process. The patterns are old and they are reinforced by years of practice and by the relational context that expect them to continue. But the process begins with the prior question. Not where did this come from, though that does matter, but who am I prior to what it produced? And the answer to that question, when it begins to genuinely be engaged, is the beginning of authoring a present that is not constrained by the past, not a present without history, a present that holds the history without being governed by it, where what happened informs rather than determines, where the past is acknowledged with full honesty and held with genuine compassion, and where it is understood finally and clearly to be the context of the story rather than its author. Your past shape your masks. Your actual identity was present before the first mask was ever built or worn, and it has been present through all of it, and it is present now underneath everything the past produced, waiting not for the past to be sufficiently processed for the present to be sufficiently inhabited. Because you can inhabit the present right now. I'm James. This is Unbound, Freedom for Life. Let's set you free.